GM. Hey,
Jim, Karen, how are you doing?
I'm good. We're live in Singapore.
Make some noise for the audience.
We have a live audience. Jesus, this is the first time ever.
These people didn't go out very late last night. They're not hungover. They're here on time.
Maybe they are.
This is actually 9 a.m. in Singapore.
Yes.
Live. And we have an audience here. We're doing the show live with all special guests and things today. So I think it's very exciting. Karen, before we begin, shall we just show a word from our chairman?
Yes.
What is discussed on the GM show is not investment advice. We may or may not have ownership interests in the projects we are talking about, but this is not investment advice in any way, shape or form. And this is not Sir David Attenborough.
Okay, this show is not sponsored by Ya Kun Toast today.
Yes, but we're enjoying Kaya Toast and Kopi this morning. So Karen, how has your Singapore Token 2049 week been so far?
It's been great. There's a lot of people around.
That's huge.
A lot of people are coming to Singapore from all over the place. There are people coming from the US, from Hong Kong. We met a lot of Hong Kong peeps over here.
Yeah.
So it's good to have everybody here.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how many people from around the world have come into Singapore to see what's happening here. In Asia, in terms of Web3, crypto, everything. So everyone's in town. There's an F1 race happening this weekend. There's multiple conferences going on, tons of parties. All the big NFT projects are in town this week, and we're just super excited. So we thought we'd do this show live for the first time. So this is the first time Karen and I have, well, the first time we did it, we were in the same room, but we destroyed we had problems there. But
we actually never met in real life.
Yeah, exactly. We never met in real life when we first did the show. Now we're like doing this. This is like what the 18th, 19th show. We decided to do it live, and we have some holders in the room of Meme Land. Guys, let's hear you again.
Where are my holders at? Yo.
Amazing. So these are hardcore. We're building all the time, no matter what time it is, no matter how hungover people are. We're here, and so let's get started. We have a really action-packed show today. So let's bring on our CEO and the founder, Ray Chan.
Yo, Ray. How was last night?
It's good, yeah. I think it's good that we wake up early.
Yeah.
Show that we show our holders that we don't really party that hard.
Yeah, we don't. We don't pop champagne. We don't have a Lamborghini.
I think that's a very old people stuff, right?
Yeah.
You wake up early, right?
Yeah.
I think this is good to show our Western audience who can't join the events, because most of the time they will think that okay, you guys spend all the mean fun and stuff like that for parties and shit, right? And we right now we still keep the routine. Yeah. We still have the GM show. I think this is how we roll at Luminant.
Yeah, we grind hard.
Yeah. So far, what have you seen in Singapore so far this week that gets you excited about Web3 in Asia?
I think my biggest feeling is if all the money into this kind of events is put into NFT, that's where the bull market can come. Yeah, I think that's a real feeling. Right? It's not a joke. But I think at the same time, I think this is my second time that I go to a Web3 related events and conference. Right? The first time was actually last week in Seoul. Right? So I feel like I think despite what Twitter people, keyboard warriors are saying, right? Despite what Discord holders or communities are saying, right? I think Web3 NFT is still alive, right? And I think actually a lot of people are building, right? And of course, by building, maybe sometimes they party, right? But by the end of the day, I think we see a lot of business, a lot of deals are happening on the scene, right? So I feel like this is actually good. And at the end of the day, I think I've been asking some friends. They all say that this year is actually the quality of the crowd, the quality of the companies are actually better. So I believe that when the market is kind of down, right, I think it's actually the real people stay, right, and they continue to build, and that's how we can create a bull market again. Yeah.
Have you met some interesting people from I know we've already run into a lot of the GM show guests already, right? You saw some of them in Seoul and you're seeing some in Singapore. What kind of what are you guys talking about when you guys meet in real life?
Not NFT.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's quite amazing, right? For example, right now we see some of our holders, right? And literally have no idea how they look like, right? I don't
They're
want
very
to name them,
attractive.
right?
They're very attractive.
They are very
Exactly, right?
attractive.
And they're actually women in NFT, right? Right? I think that's a key thing, right? And
That's rare.
Yeah, that's rare. that's a rare, yeah. And I think I also met some people that I admire, right, online and stuff, right? For example, I met People, and also DK, right, in Seoul. People is as fun as his art. And DK is like as cute as his art, right? DK is literally looks like his art. So I think this is like very fun. And of course, I met quite a lot of founders face to face in the first time, right? For example, right? Ray in the audience, right, from PXM. Yeah, so I feel like the whole thing is like pretty surreal, right? And I think this is great. Yeah.
So the live events gives you inspiration to learn what other people are doing, because it give you inspiration to build more stuff. Like what is that kind of feedback? Because like you said, you've only been to 2 events live like this with a big audience and meeting a lot of your peers for the first time, right? Does it inspire you? Does it make you feel you're not building fast enough? What do you think?
I think it gives people hopium. Yeah, so that they feel like shit. We actually have other people who understand our pain, right? And then we can build together. It's almost like kind of like a AA in a way, right? It's like just as this time it's like NA, it's like not applicable, that kind of stuff, right? So I think it's almost like on one hand we are kind of like living in a bubble, right? But on the other hand, because of this bubble, right, you also feel like, okay, how we are different, right, from all other people, especially for example, like Token, right? They are like around the CBD area in Singapore. Then you feel like, okay, we talk about like monkey JPEGs, right? And then like JPEGs in general, right? And then people outside, they're wearing suits and then go back to office and work and stuff, right? Then you feel that, okay, I'm pretty cool because all those guys are going back to office. And then we can just have toes and bullshit on YouTube and Twitter, right? So I think this is like actually very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing people wearing shorts to this conference because it's very casual in Singapore.
I think they wear slippers, right? To the most luxurious hotel, the rooftop bar and shit, right? They like shorts and stuff, right? And then they look like a beggar, right?
Wait.
And they actually like, and then, this is like one of the mind-blowing people that I met. I actually met
richest people.
Free Lunch Capital, right? In person. And then he was like, I don't want to describe him, right? But it's like, totally not I expected, right? I expected that he's like a 50-year-old dude and stuff, right? But actually, he's not like that, right? Thanks to Nelson, right? And then I met him, and shit, this is like so mind-blowing. Yep.
And okay, so you haven't been to Singapore in a long time, I think, right? So what do you think of the city in general? Like, I mean, this is a special week, of course, right? Token 2049 says like 10,000 attendees. There's 400 sound events, like we talked with Gabe last week about it. But what's your vibe, hanging out at parties and just being in the city? Like, do you feel like that this city is going to be like a big place that Meanland will, revisit and do more stuff in? Like, what do you think of Singapore in general?
I mean, Singapore, of course, I have to say Singapore is great, right? Yeah. Otherwise, I think I may not go back to Hong Kong, right? I think it's great. I think the vibe is good, right? And I feel like I'm not sure because it's like the token event, right? Or just in general. I feel like there are quite many builders in the cities, right? I walk around and then I came across some friends, right? And then that's Jason Choi, right? And then we this is like the first time, and he's our investor and stuff, right? And then we shake hands and stuff. So I feel like the whole thing is like compared to what I see in Hong Kong, especially when we are like 100% remote, it's always like facing the computer without meeting people. So somehow I think this gives us a more like lively feeling that, okay, we actually are making something people care. So I think in Singapore, I feel like there are a lot of people coming to work here, right? I know maybe they are around the Southeast Asia. So you actually feel like a lot of the guys from the West, they actually come to the Asia, right, to build. Right? And I think that's exactly what we want to achieve at GM Show, right? We have the ABC, and Asia Focus is our goal, right? But when we talk about focus, it's not about, okay, Asia is better or something like that, right? It's more about, okay, Asia is a present, it's a future. And I think that's something that we want to tell the world. Because I feel like the West is like, despite K-pop, K-drama and stuff, right? They understand so little about Asia, right? And they think that, Asia, that means like every country says the same shit, right? But to be honest, right, I think when we talk about Asia, just like I think two episodes ago, when we talked to one of the guests, right? I think he thinks that the biggest misunderstanding is, okay, Southeast Asia is like same market, right?
Yeah,
But it's actually like tens of market and something like that.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think that's very important to remember that everybody's watching this, how excited about Asia we are. So let's bring up our first guest, local Singaporean Web3 founder. So he's
one of the most handsome founders.
Yeah, most handsome
in
founder.
NFT.
So BBRC Studios, if you don't know, is a Web3 studio bridging fashion, art, culture, and entertainment through collaborations of artists, creators, and brands. It's founded by Nelson Yap, also known as Mr. Gentle Ape in the Web3 space. He's a serial entrepreneur and the man behind Benjamin Barker, a premium menswear label. They're backed by a global team with decades of experience in tech, crypto, branding, fashion, manufacturing. Their CFO worked at a retail group that managed Adidas, Uniqlo, Topshop, and Ben Sherman. Very exciting. The Ivy Boys is their first NFT collection minted in May of last year. Hedong is their newest project, but let's let Nelson talk more about it. Welcome to the show, Mr. Gentle Ape himself, Nelson. Yeah!
Welcome.
Nelson, GM.
Thanks for having me.
So,
Exciting.
First question, how has your token week been so far? Is this like a normal week for you in Singapore?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I still do my Web2 job in the day, and then Web3 is all about networking and meeting all the great people and exchanging ideas. So it's been fun.
So it's really a boon to have token in Singapore, right? You think because everyone's here now, or that you don't have to. Before, like also in Hong Kong, we have a lot of shows now. Before, we always have to go to like New York, go to London. Right. Now everybody's coming here, so you have to save a lot on hotel and airfare, right? And you can put it back into parties and stuff like that and dinners. Is that exciting for you to be part of that?
Yeah, I think like this is home ground, so it's where we are most comfortable. We get to host people from overseas, so that's fun. Bring them to eat good food.
The food, right? The food is like a huge.
For sure, our community is here, so there's a lot of support behind us as well. So definitely great. Yeah.
Definitely great. And the weather's been great. The F1 though, I have to say, is very important. Right, the F1, like the buildings, the advertising, the excitement for that event, and also the Marina Bay Sands, like that's incredible, right? That building everyone's seen the picture of it, right? It's got the 3 towers of like the thing on top,
the swimming pool on top.
And then there's across the street from that is the actual convention center, the casino, the shops. Like it's run by the Sands, right? Which is the Las Vegas company. We don't have anything like this in Hong Kong, right? Well, I don't think any place has this in Asia. Singapore really does, I think, benefit from that huge event, because not only is Token 2049 on 2 floors, there's another conference about something else below it, right?
Seafood Expo.
Yeah, Seafood Expo.
We can smell it from...
Actually, there are more people going to Seafood Expo.
Free food.
Yeah, exactly.
No, there are tons of conventions happening. It's like convention city.
It's convention city, right? That's right. And so that's what I want to talk to you about next. So I came earlier past weekend, and you were exhibiting for the first time at a toy conference called the Pop Toy Mart, and you were showing off all these new great collectible figures. Tell everybody a little bit about what that is and what you guys, what BBRC is doing there.
Yeah, it's our very first show in Singapore, exhibiting. Even I've been in business for 18 years. This is the first toy convention or even any kind of convention that we're doing, and it really came about 2 months ago when a friend introduced me to the founder of the Pop Mart Singapore, and he told me about the event. And so very, very, very happy that the team managed to pull it off. I think a lot of people here came for the show, came for our event, and they can see all the team members in BBRC is all on the ground, right? Yeah. The dev is is doing the cashiering, all the way to our community manager who's running the claw machines and all that. So everyone was on the ground running, but it's also the first time we show Hedong and Ivy Boys to the public, right? Outside of NFTs. Yeah. So it's really great to see the response. Yeah. Like I think I hear a lot like Hedong is very cute, right? Yeah. All the kids. So I think there's a lot of potential.
That's your bridge between not even Web 2, just like normal people in Web 3, right?
Right.
It's very exciting. So just if anybody doesn't know what Pop Mart is, that Chinese brand that sells the little figurines in the blind boxes. They're everywhere, right? They have vending machines, they have stores, they're in the States, they're in Canada, they're in Europe. It's a massive, massive thing. So they have a show, like they call them art toys, right? They're not really toys for little kids. They're more like collectible figures for a little bit older people, right? So that's why you're displaying there. And you had some prototypes there of some of the figures, right? That you can bid on with ETH. Is that right?
Right. Did you beat?
I didn't bid. I bought a T-shirt and said I couldn't afford the bids on those
Yeah,
things.
it's fun. Like Sebastian from Sandbox tried to bid, right?
Yeah,
But he didn't win, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. I think we wanted to. The auction only came about, like, to be honest, 3 days before the show.
Yeah.
We were also, because we only had 2 months to prepare, right?
Yeah.
And we were having lunch in the office, and I was like, hey, and I was talking to the dev. I was like, you think we can do an auction?
Yeah.
And everyone's face was like, what?
Yeah.
Auction?
Yeah.
But yeah, they put it off, and I really wanted to test it live. So we didn't actually make any announcements before.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And we just went on live, and we announced it on Twitter after we went live, right?
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. It really picked a lot of interest. Like, people walking around from the public and say, how come you can bid in, like, fiat, but you can, what's Ethereum? And so I think the whole idea is really to pick people's curiosity.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. And then you had the show the first time they displayed the Meme Land Hidong, right?
Right.
Design, right? That's cool, right? What's the reaction to those specific NFT co-branded Hidong figures? It's all like, do people ask, what is this stuff? Or do people take
obviously the people's favorite is the Meme Land.
Yeah.
With Hidong.
You have to say that when you're here,
Right?
Yeah. I think he's like a businessman for 18 years. So you know how he can respond to questions like this.
He knows this.
Wait, so do you see like this experience expanding to other cities in Asia? Like how is that going to
for sure?
play
I think, for example, after the show, Aaron, our artist, posted about it, and so like Hyundai from Korea, they asked us to do a pop up in Korea as well.
Ooh.
So
back to Seoul.
That's how it starts, right?
Yeah.
It seems like a gamble to do like an NFT thing in a toy show, but actually the graphics are phenomenal, right? That's why I love Aaron's art. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's very relatable.
Yeah, very relatable. Yeah. So I guess let's go back a little bit, talk about building stuff, right? You're from the fashion industry, right? I mean, obviously there's a whole onboarding story. You probably said a million times, but how do you find it, like in Singapore, when you talk to your friends in the fashion industry, like what are their questions about getting into Web3 and NFTs and things like that? And how do you onboard these people? Because now, markets are down. It's not really about money anymore. It's about different kinds of things.
I think the whole reason I got into NFTs in the first place was I was very interested in, how to push fashion forward, right? I've been doing fashion for like 18 years, and I'm very, very restless, and I'm always thinking, like, what's next for fashion, right? We sell suits and shirts. It's a very traditional brick and mortar conservative business, right? And I think in another life I would have been a filmmaker because that's my background. So I always see myself as.
You mean you make film or you become like a star or something?
No. Yeah, I'm always, believe it or not, like I really hate being in front of cameras. I am always behind the camera, definitely a lot more comfortable there. But yeah, in another life, I would have been a filmmaker. What kind of films? I don't know, but
this is the cast.
The couch.
Yeah, the couch.
Casting couch. If you know, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, to me, it's always about telling stories.
Yeah.
Right. Like branding is about always telling stories, and even in our stores, if you got a chance to visit, it's all about telling stories and creating the experience. So when I first got into NFT, the whole experience was very fun for me, right? I'm not like a trader or anything, right? And I'm also wasn't from crypto. So what attracted me was the whole experience of the gamification, right? My first NFT was a CloneX, right? And the whole review, and the whole story of how I got a rare, I bought it at 3 ETH, and I flipped it at 35 ETH on the same day. Yeah. So that really got me down the rabbit hole. Yeah, but more than that, it's like then I got into Bored Apes and followed the lore and the gamification. You can use it in games. So to me and that made me think about, this is a really great opportunity to bring fashion with Web3 technology, with blockchain technology. There's so many use cases for that, whether it's membership, whether it's, authenticity, whether it's community building, and you bring people through a story. Yeah. Right. So Ivy Boys, had that roadmap, right? In the past, there used to be this thing called roadmaps. But yeah, that was very fun for me. So that's how I kind of, from fashion, went into Web3.
Okay, so how I met you, you came to Hong Kong in March, right, for the FOMO Asia show. We did a panel together, and we dunked on Singapore because, yeah, you were in Hong Kong. So it was very good fun, right?
Now we're in reverse.
Now we're reverse world, right? So how did you meet, like, Ray? Like, how, you know, I learned a lot about you and your project because I met you in real life, and I was very interested in your story that you told on stage. Like, how did you guys meet? You know, how do you guys share information together? You know, I want to know what the camaraderie is, because I think you guys knew each other before, right? Before the FOMO Asia.
Yeah, before FOMO Asia.
Yeah. So maybe you talk a little bit about, you know, how do you guys work together? Like, because in Singapore, we had Gabe on last week, and he has the art community, so he has like builders in there, but I guess they're more like connected in the city. How do you connect across Asia, maybe with other Asian founders? You guys can just riff on this together.
If I remember it correctly, right, I think, Nelson, you bought an MVP, right? That's how we started to talk. Right? And at the time, I know that he's like no. I think before that, I think because we have quite many holders from Singapore. I think like Nick, like Uncle, right? And I think they mentioned about Mr. Gentle Ape, right? I mean, even his name is like Gentle, right? And then he said, oh, he's a good guy. He's a builder, right? And then when he bought MVP, right? I forgot how much, right? Hopefully, it's not down bad, right? But I think that's where we started to talk. I remember the first time we had a call, we talked for 5 hours, right? Because it's not bitching about community and stuff, but more about why, right? Why join Web3, right? Because I think there are quite a lot of founders. There are not quite a lot of people. There are quite a lot of brands, right? They actually have a Web2 presence or offline presence, right? And then they start to do something in Web3, right? But not that many is the founder actually is very involved in those projects. Most of the time, even like CloneX, right? I'm 100% sure, right? Nike CEO is not working on that, right? Yeah. And all the Adidas stuff, right? Adidas CEO is not working on that, right? But for us, right? For Nelson, right? So it's like the founder who's still running the Web2 or the offline business, right? But still starting Web3 and spend so much time in Web3, almost like ignoring the other business, right? So that's why we talk about that and what we see, what are the goods, the bads, the ugly, right? And stuff like that. Right? I think that's why we clicked. Because when I talk to Nelson, I know that on one hand, he brings different experience, right, onto Web3. But on the other hand, he's also understand the game, the Web3 game, right? That's why he's like, bit on the golden skateboard from Asuki, right? And then got into Asuki, and then to learn from the Asuki community and stuff like that. I think all this kind of stuff knows that, Nelson actually knows Web3, and he doesn't just want to take, right? But he also wants to give. He also wants to learn, right? That's how we started the relationship, yeah. I think
Thank you for the
yeah.
kind words.
Yeah, maybe he's saying, I don't know. I just randomly bought a JPEG, right?
He doesn't care.
I love the art. Yeah. Back then, or actually even so now, like to talk to Ray, I had to spend that amount to buy an MVP. But I think I spoke to Mami Poco. All right, Mami Poco. Yeah.
Mami Poco, amazing artist.
And I found out Mami Poco was a friend's brother as well, and he's from Singapore. So like bullish, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then he was like onboarding me. Say, hey, do you want to find out about MVPs? Ray, I can get Ray to talk to you and share more about MVP. I was like, no, just buy it, right? Yeah. And then I realized when I think like we're
shit. Keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, like we are business people, right? Like I think we are really true in terms of entrepreneurship, right? Like I realized when I meet Ray in real life that we can speak 5 hours or more on NFTs.
Yeah.
But in real life, other than NFTs, I think there's nothing much else. it can be quite awkward because there's nothing else to talk about. Yeah. But when we talk about NFTs, we're really, really passionate about
also
it.
Kids. Yeah, we also talk about
kids.
Yeah.
And food.
And
Not really. Yeah, only kids and NFT.
Kids and NFT. Great.
Yeah, they are the most expensive stuff that you own. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I want to just quickly touch upon the artwork side of Ivy Boys and working with Aaron Chang. He's not from Singapore, right? He's from Korea.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. How did you meet him? And how important is the art style and things like that for your new projects going forward?
So he was one of the more prolific illustrators on Instagram. And being in menswear and fashion, I thought he was one of the better ones. And I kind of reached out to him on DMs. And I saw him trying to launch an NFT project, but there wasn't any volume, So at the same time, I was very curious and say, hey, I can do the marketing, I can build, I can create a hype, And yeah, he came on board. And apparently, like a lot of people messaged him about that. Somehow he said that he just randomly replied to mine, and we got into this together. Yeah.
Amazing. And then, so what happens next with Ivy Boys and Hidong? Like, what are your plans going forward? You're like a studio, like NFTs Web3 studio, so you must have more products coming out. What can you tell us?
I think over the past year, like Web3 has evolved so much, right? Beyond the speculation and beyond all the whole, saga. But I think for us, it's really going back into what we came out to do, right? Like, what can we do in Web3? What value can we bring into Web3 through fashion, right? How do we bring fashion to the next level? So, we've got like 3D modelers in house now to create avatars and all that we have set out to do. Yeah. I think that the challenge, right, in Web3 is that it's very distracting. Because on one hand, you got to like keep on, entertaining your holders. In the past, right, it was like every week it's like what's next, right? Mm-hmm. And then we got to and it's not easy just to do a simple, simple mechanic. All the dev and the designers have to get on it, right? And there's a lot of time spent on just creating something just for the holders to entertain them for 3 days, right? And then everyone moves on, right? Yeah. So that's the challenge. But then sometimes it distracts us away from what we actually set out to do, right? And along this whole journey, I realized that it's a lot of projects. Either after a while they fade out, right? Because they run out of funds or whatever, right? Yeah. But for us, I think we have a longer term vision, right? And we have brick and mortar stores. We have 20 stores. We know retail. We know fashion. So I think we're leaning into our strengths in that. And how do we bring the physical, merchandise to the digital world, right? In a meaningful manner. Yeah. Not just creating like digital runways. A lot of brands do that, and it's quite boring, right? But how do we do it in a more meaningful way? And NFTs is great because for the first time, like a lot of people are using their NFTs as PFPs, right? And these are their identities. So fashion definitely plays a part in creating someone's identity. Yeah. So yeah, I think just bringing the physical wardrobe to the digital space and making it more interoperable to games, hopefully in the future.
Awesome.
I feel like Ray feels the same pain.
Same pain, yeah. Not same bullish sentiment. Yeah, but I mean, jokes aside, I feel like what Nelson shared, right? I think it echoes a lot. I think at the end of the day, NFT is just the tech, right? How you apply the tech, I think that's the key part. I think in the space right now, not that many projects still have the fun and still have the heart to build, right? And I feel like there are only a handful of projects that have the ability to bring more onto the table. Right? Mm-hmm. I think fashion, right? I mean, when you look at the NFT projects right now, I mean, Nikes, they still have Clone X, and Adidas, they still have the odds, right? And then, but there are not that many like like top, not top tier, but like the global conglomerate, right? That is into NFT and stuff, right? So I feel like if a relatively smaller company start to learn more, right, then they can actually do a lot more than the big company. Right? As I mentioned, if the founders actually running the project, it can move things way faster. Right? So I feel like this is definitely the advantage. And I share with Nelson's feeling that somehow it's almost like a learning process, right? I mean, people hate building and learning, right? Because all the founders say that shit, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like this is actually a learning process, right? Because this is like the first time we do NFT, right? We are not like scammers which run like 10 projects before, right? That's what I always talk to our accounts and stuff, right? It's almost about when you look at a project, the minting website, when the mints kind of like sucks, it's because it's the first time founder. Yeah. If it's like a rug pool founders, right? So smooth, right? Because it's experienced. It's so experienced. It's like practice makes perfect, right? It's like so smooth, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like that in a way, right? And this is one thing. On the other hand is when you look at the communication, most of the time for founders, it's like do so much, right? Because they want to impress the community, right? It's almost like a relation. I always believe that community building is like relationship building, right? But this time, your so-called your target, right? It's not just one girl or one guy. It's actually a lot of girls and guys, right? And who also pay you. It sounds like positive, but anyway, yeah. But at the end, it's like the reverse positive. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's a process to how to find the balance and tell people what we are building, right? And because I think for people who buy into a project, it's always about the money first, right? But after some time, you start to learn more about what the project is about, what the team is trying to build, and then you try to have the natural selection about your holder. It's almost like the holders pick the project, but the project also pick the holders, right? And after some time, you started to find your core audience, and that's where you can start to build, right? And it's almost like in a relationship, in a way, when you just started the relationship, you try to impress your girlfriend so much, right? But after some time, you know that this is not sustainable, right? Because it feels like you treat her better, right? She demands more. Right? It's almost like you have to find a good balance, and then we have a self-respect. I think we are learning that at Memeland as well. So I feel like this is like an ongoing process, and hopefully, right, when people look at our projects, right, they know that okay, we are in it for marriage, right? We are not doing one night stand, right? Otherwise,
we're not fuckboys.
Yeah, we're not fuckboys. Yeah. And I think that's the key. And that's also the reason why we still have to show up despite the bear market, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what real builders do, right? They show up regarding like good times, bad times. That's how you can push the agenda forward.
Yeah, I think like the community now, I would say, is a lot more enjoyable because expectations.
Not yet for me.
Not for you,
Not yet
sorry.
for me. Yeah.
Just for me, right? I think like people who are still around, they're here for the right reasons, or they're still following projects because they like what the project is doing. So, for example, like we're supposed to drop merch soon, right, for our holders, and we can say, we have the Pop Toy Show, we have the Token 2049 week. Let's do the merch after that. In the past we would just get flooded, right? Like mad, but now it's like, take your time.
Talking about that, BBRC merch is probably the best merch I have ever got, right? I mean, not just from Web3, but from all the parts like Web2 and shit, right? It's like really high quality.
I'm wearing it right now.
Yeah.
This t-shirt's very nice.
I think every NFT project, right? They should work with BBRC to make the merch.
Yeah.
The cap. I think they also make carpet, right? It's like literally
Rugs. We make rugs.
The rugs. They're making rugs. Yeah. So you can literally sell rugs to your holders, right? But the quality. The quality is really good. Yeah. So I really think that's one thing that people don't know enough, right? Because actually most of the projects, right, they make their own merch and stuff, right? And they can't really compare. But as a holder, right, I actually can compare. Okay, the merch from I bought Ape, right, and then BBRC is way better. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Okay, I think we have time. If anybody have a question, I have time for one or two questions from the audience because we don't take audience questions. But I think everybody's cool. Okay, all right. We won't take any questions. Anything else from Karen?
No. Like, it's good to have everybody here.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Nelson. Amazing.
Nelson.
Let's give him a round of applause. We can do it live.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
We don't have any music to play you off, but thanks a lot. Hang around. Don't leave. We want to take some photos later on anyways. Okay. So, Karen, Ray, that's pretty great, right? It's great to sit down with Nelson and talk in Singapore live together on stage, right?
Yep.
I think it's great.
Okay. The casting is pretty good.
What's that?
The casting is pretty good.
The casting is good.
area.
We should bring the next one.
He's hired. Okay. So since everybody's in town for Singapore for Token 2049, we thought everybody on the GM show has been demanding our next guest to be on the show. Like every week, bring these guys on, and finally, and
We
even
got
at
them.
9:30 in the morning, they are
On
here.
time.
Everybody, put your hands together for Frank and Kevin Degods.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe this. This is crazy. Okay, take some pictures. Let's just stick this in for a second here. Thank you so much for being here this morning. All right, just in case anybody doesn't know what Degods is, let's just talk quickly about it. It's an NFT collection featuring the godly characters. In December 2022, Degods made a calculated risk and announced that it would be migrating from Solana to Ethereum. The Utes is also an NFT collection. Degods is created and managed by Dust Labs, a Web3 studios led by Frank Degods, and Kevin Degods is CEO of Dust Labs. Amazing guys. Thank you so much for being here. It's amazing. First question. How do you like Singapore? Is this your first time to Singapore or second time?
No,
or
I did Web2 stuff, so I've been to a lot of Asian countries over my time, and so, but second time on a crypto trip, but probably more than 10 times.
Okay.
I love the food. I love traveling in Asia just in general. And so, yeah, Singapore is always dope. I think, it's always like, what is it? The traffic, the food, like what ends up trapping you up? But Singapore's pretty chill. It's pretty easy around. Most of the things that you end up doing end up being pretty centralized. And so that you're not feeling like you're stuck. Yeah. We were in Korea last week. And that one definitely feels more like you're stuck at home because, things get spread out. But yeah, I don't know. I love Singapore. I'm super stoked.
Oh, Frank.
Yeah, a bunch of my favorite guys from the team are from Singapore, and so been here before as well. I like it honestly a little bit more than Korea. So,
yeah. I can't say that because my wife's Korean, so I get taken out. But no,
it's the English thing. It's like everyone speaks English here so much.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Language.
Okay, so you guys, all three of you guys were in Seoul last week for Korea Blockchain Week. Now you're here. No sleep for builders ever, right? You guys are probably climatized to the time zone now, but maybe talk a little bit about, how you see, differences do you see between Seoul and Singapore? You guys must have met a lot of people, or did you meet all the same people? Everybody just shift down here, right?
We met the same people. I think they probably met more people. Yeah, because I only went to their party and I go home. Yeah.
So you guys talk a little bit about what you
honestly
think.
My sleep's been better on traveling because I have such bad hours in Los Angeles. It translates over. I'm like waking up at 6 a.m. Yeah, okay, it's pretty early. Yeah. But no, it's honestly like half of Web3's in this room right now, which is sick. But yeah, it's always the best part, to be totally real, because you spend so much time on your laptop and just reading Twitter, reading Discord, seeing people interact on honestly digital screens. And just seeing it in real life and meeting people that care about something as much as you do is honestly fucking magical. Like it's pretty underrated. Yeah. It sounds lame to say, you know, on the internet. People are like, oh, how cool could it really be? But it's actually pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's the same. I think it is a lot harder for me to recognize PFP human name and all that. Frank's like a genius. I'm like, man, they're like, I met you X. And I'm like, dude, I'll be honest, I just don't remember. But my memory is not as good. But I think the thing that I've noticed, especially with these last 2 weeks, is just the amount of quality of the people is higher. Like, I mean, people that are left, Frank's making the joke, like, hey, it's half of them are in the room. But like, they're actually still working on something. They deeply believe they haven't run out of money, patience, or time. And I think that, to me, has like dramatically raised the quality of the conversations in the last 2 weeks versus even something a year or so ago where there was still a lot of like, just secondary things that aren't businesses or sort of, I don't know, I'm trying to find a neutral word to say that's not like negative, but like people that were here just because of the vibes. And I liken it back to 2000. Like there was dudes that could quit their job at McDonald's and make 50, 60, 70 grand a year just working at a random web one company or when the first .com boom. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that sucks. I got to go back and like literally work at McDonald's again. And then I think there's a version of that happened in crypto. When crypto's running hard, like anybody with a heartbeat and like a reasonable breath could like get in and get a role and find something that appeared to look like a job or appeared to look like necessary, but it wasn't really necessary when the tide kind of came down to like who's the true sort of believers and true builders left.
I mean, yeah, totally. Right? I think the market is not bad enough, right? So that a lot of bad people are still here, right? Right? I think a lot of bad people are back, right? I don't know why. I think probably they I think this is a thing that I don't like Web3, which is after some time, all the bad people, right? They did so much bad shit, right? But they come back, they look like normal, right? And then they still have the clout, right? Yeah. It's almost, I think one thing that I wanted to be put on chain is actually reputation, right? Because all these guys, okay, after rug pull, bad projects and stuff, and then they can come back and then talk shit about the builders in the space, right? I think that's like really, really bad, right? But somehow it is what it is, right? You attract your own crowd. So for us, we just have to push forward. But at the end of the day, I feel like builders gonna build. I think that part is very, very true. But I think this time, because of the so-called reset, I feel like, okay, people actually have more realistic expectation, right, of what the price should be, right, of what the future can be, right? I think this is like a good thing. It's almost like growing pain in a way, right? But I think this is necessary. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about the US, right? So you got the Korea show, you got the Singapore show. It's very exciting. When we see you guys' faces on all our old GM show guests or from the US are all coming to Asia. We're very excited, right? And we saw the SECs like suing everybody. And so what's going on over there? So what are your visions now when you're coming out? Like, what did you guys expect when you got on a plane to come out here now? As what's going on in the States, and then what's the reality that you're kind of seeing now? Because I'd like to hear from you guys direct, like hard reality.
Yeah, I'll start. And Frank and I were talking about this in the ride over, and he's got some really insightful stuff. But I think for me, when I make a lot of trips to Korea because my wife's Korean, and so like I started to notice. And normally I would not do crypto meetings. I was just there to meet family or whatever. And I took a couple meetings almost a year ago now, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. In the US, you don't see the dominant Web 2 players moving into Web 3, right? Like the people that are in Web 3 is like startups and like new companies. There's not a lot of like of the larger players being like, hey, we're pivoting to Web 3 or starting a JV on Web 3. There was a little bit of that in the bull run for a minute, but it dried up quickly. Where in Japan and Korea, in two specific terms, like you see like deep IP culture, music, fashion, and you see like those main companies moving over into like literally just launching a Web3 business. And honestly, like you go meet with them, it's the management of the Web2 company running the Web3 thing, and the Web2 thing sort of on ice, which is kind of cool to see. In Japan, I think there's still regulatory pressure. And again, just picking two that I've been to recently before Singapore. And then in Korea, I think the regulatory model is a little wider. And so you're seeing a little more aggression there. And so I think like the right mix of like strong IP, strong Web2, strong tech, pivoting into this like Web3 thing, I think is pretty interesting. And I think there's a lot of that in Asia, right? Like where we're seeing like a more aggressive move from like dominant players into Web3, where I think in the US, it's still much more a niche thing of like startup, separate businesses. People are not like taking their Web2 business and then like pivoting into Web3 or even launching a JV. But that's my sort of broader take.
Yeah, I think I've been pulling the Asian card a lot more often now. But I'm actually cautiously optimistic on, the America, the SEC, even with what came out yesterday. It was cool to see there's like a dissenting opinion, from the policymakers at the SEC saying like, hey, like, if we go too far on the NFTs, it's kind of like every physical collectible can be categorized in that. Right. Like recently they were saying it traded on secondary, therefore, it's part of the Howey test. And it's kind of like, bro, it's a little wild, like that everything trades, to a degree on secondary. And so I think I'm interested and cautiously optimistic, and honestly feel grateful to be in a spot where, we can self-regulate ourselves right now and try to do everything in good faith. And yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic there. But I think Asia is obviously one of these things where it's going to get bigger broadly across the world. I think that there's a lot of bad reputation around crypto broadly in America. A lot of American media kind of companies it gets more clicks, right? Like things that are bad get more clicks. And so I think that Asia, I don't know if I'm off on this, but it seems more untainted and a chance to learn a lot from what we learned in this last cycle and over these last few years, and try to do it right, progressively keep getting better and better. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I share the sentiment, right? I mean, as a guy born and raised in Hong Kong, I think somehow it's like come down to two things, right? On one hand, crypto or Web3 is just a subset, right, of the macro economies, right? Look at the GDP of all the countries, right? Is America growing, right? Is Canada growing? Is China growing? Is Singapore growing, right? And basically, I think if you look at the geographical GDP, basically it's like Asia is the fastest growing like region, right, in the world, right? And of course, when people are getting richer, right, then they can invest in more like high-risk assets and stuff like that. And there are more opportunities for new opportunities, right, for the younger generation. And to be honest, if you ask like a 40 years old guy, 50 years old guy, right, if you have like 100K, what would you do? Oh, maybe buy properties, right? Maybe buy a car, right? For kids, right? Let's fucking buy shitcoin, right? And that's how you get more like attention, right? And I think that's one thing. It's like a subset of the macro economy. On the other hand, I think it's also because the medium is changed. In the past, the culture, right, and a lot of stuff is like led by like a US companies and stuff like that. But right now, when you see K-pop, when you see anime, right, getting exported, right, you can see that the so-called Eastern influence is getting higher and higher. And somehow, in the past, in the old game, like for example, if we have like a amusement park, right, it's hard to win over Disney, right, because they have all the good location, right, they have all the people, right. But on Web3, it's kind of like economy in a way that, okay, on digital, I can sell it to the world, right? So even if I'm based in Hong Kong, I can sell it to the US, to Canada, to France, right? I think that helps a lot, right? That's why you see that a lot of Asian, even like big companies, they're very aggressive. For example, like Line, like Kakao, like Netmarble, right, from Korea, right? They don't mind, right? Because to them, it's hard to compete with the old ball game with all the existing big companies, right? But in the new digital game, they actually have a good chance. Yeah. So I feel like these are the two, I would say, the macro reason, right, for the boom in Asia. And of course, generally, Asians are more hardworking, right? And for Web3, you actually need really, really hard work, right? So maybe that helps as well. Yeah.
Kevin, you want to follow up on that?
Yeah, no, I'm super down with the hard work thing. Like for sure, like. I think the hard work and the grind, I think, makes a big difference. I think the other thing is, I've always noticed that, like, if you look at luxury goods and you map to, like, a lot of, like, whether it's expensive purses or jewelry or things like that, Asia leads in that market, right? And I think, like, from a, like, consumption sort of per capita and dollar spent, like, and so I think if you think of, like, especially high-priced NFTs or digital collectibles as, like, luxury items, and they clearly are starting in that path where a lot of things start, I think Asia will sort of lead there as well, and we're seeing that. And so I think it's been exciting for us to spend more time here, and, it's great to sort of connect with everybody.
So when you guys are in the States now and you're talking to other fellow founders and stuff like that, what do you guys see what do you think is the conversation around Asia right now? Right? Because we're based in Hong Kong. So we have definitely a vibe about Hong Kong. We come to Singapore. I'm very impressed with what I've seen this week too. I haven't been here in a long time. I've seen a lot of people that are involved in different projects. And then I don't know if you heard Nelson earlier, he's talking about great stuff we had last week. We had a whole community leader in Singapore talking about builders here. We also, the main point is Hong Kong is still connected to China, right? And so a lot of Chinese builders are like looking to leave. So did they go to Hong Kong or do they go to Singapore? Because it seems like the thing. And then what you mentioned, yeah, the language is also a thing, right? So Mandarin, English, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaysia, these places seem to be much more interesting. Like, but what is the conversation you guys are hearing? Like, when you tell people, "Hey, we're going to Seoul, we're going to Singapore," like, what are people talking to you guys about?
It's been crazy. Everyone's trying to make an anime collection now. Yeah. I don't know why, but no, I do think like one thing I thought that was interesting as a real in this space, it was like when ordinals started to get really popular. Honestly, I was there like the first month, and a big subsection, not just of the volume, but the interest and the conversation was very Asia focused, like very Asia dominated, and it was organic in that way. And I think the balance that I'm always curious about is that, like, even for us, like, yeah, my parents are from India. I grew up in Los Angeles, and for me, it's like we talk about it. We don't want to pander, right? I think that's what a lot of teams and people in the space are trying to like essentially do, and I think that is honestly undercutting the intelligence of the Asian market. And I think like you have to make something that's genuinely cool, genuinely interesting, and it will find popularity. And you could be smart on your strategy of distribution. But I think a lot of people like just read the memes on Twitter of the Chinese whales, and they just assume if they put their fucking Discord and they add the Chinese channel, all of a sudden like everything's gonna go crazy. And it's just so beyond the truth. And honestly, a lot of like the smartest people that I've met in the space for many reasons are based in Asia. But, I think that it's a very, very sophisticated market, and a lot of people treat it like this monolithic thing. And it's like you said, the language, it's just so deeply not monolithic. Yeah. And even the term Asia, I mean, it's a fucking continent, right? It's it's insane. Yeah.
I think the one thing, I was talking to some folks in Korea and I was like, there's never been any negative press in Korea. And they were like, what? And it was like, there's never been as much negative press converted to English. That, so I think there is like you always think of like, because I was like, other than Luna, like, I was like, there's been nothing. And they're like, dude, And like, they were like going down the list of them, and guy that was in the room was like, no, I was like the main guy converting a bunch of stuff, worked as a reporter. And so I think there is some, and I think that works both ways, right? Where there's, crypto Twitter is very English centric. And like, I remember him joining like Chinese spaces and people were translating during the ordinals launch because there was a huge interest in ordinals. And like, I think there is still a barrier that like the language thing is tricky in some cases, but I think like the countries where there is deeper English penetration and like more common to just be, talking in English, I do think there's a little bit of a like at least an awareness from our side and where we see that news crossover, where I think like some of the countries where it's like English is not the primary language, which obviously makes sense because it's not their primary language, doesn't come out on crypto Twitter. Like Twitter essentially censors that in a sense. Like I was saying, like just showing up even in my hotel room here, I'm seeing like way more Zuki, way more Singapore. And I'm like, it's not like I went and followed like 100 more Zuki people to show up here, but I think there's actually like, oh, the Geos thing's there. People are writing in English this week more than they maybe were, last week because people are here. You're seeing it more. And so I think there is an awareness thing that's somewhat hidden because I'm not in the same crypto, sort of algo because I'm speaking and reading English.
Right. Well, what do you think about that, Ray? It's interesting.
I think that, I want to add on more on the language stuff, right? As a guy who speaks English and Chinese, we intentionally do not have any Chinese channel in Memeland, right? Because I'm a Chinese, right? So I'm gonna say some politically incorrect shit, right? I think that Chinese doesn't like Chinese, right? So they think that, okay, because they are like, a lot of Chinese are scammers, right? A lot of Chinese are scammers, right? That's why they assume that others are also scammers, right? Meanwhile, if you are like an American company, right, they almost automatically assume that you are a better guy because it's like the inferior like complexity of Asians, right? Because in the past, a lot of the Asia is like colonies of like the Western countries, right? I think that's why we intentionally do not have any other language channel, right? Because we want to build Memeland, right, to be like a global company. And honestly, until today, English is still the most prominent language right now, right? Maybe in the future it's Chinese, I don't know, right? But that's what we intentionally to do that. Meanwhile, a lot of our other projects, right, especially US-based projects, they literally open a Chinese channel, right? On the website, they have the Chinese language, right, translated, right? Because they want to cater the Chinese whale as well. So it's like, this is kind of like funny for me as a Hong Kong guy to see about that. And the thing is, one thing that I'm quite sure is Chinese somehow is like a love-hate relationship. If you make them happy, they can make you super happy. Yeah. If you fuck them over, right, they will fuck you much harder, right? So I think that's the challenge, how you deal with us Chinese, right, or Asian in general. Yeah. But in general, I still believe that, a lot of people, they really believe in crypto, right? And I think in China, digital economy is like, is already there, right? When you go to Beijing or Shenzhen or Shanghai, right, you just use your phone, right, to pay, right? You don't even have to use your credit card. Your face, your face, that part is like kind of a sensitive. We should not talk about that, right? But I think somehow I feel like this is the part where there's actually a discrepancy, right? And I feel like we just have to play to our strength, right? If we are like a Asia company, right, then we want to pretend to be like more westernized, right? If you are like a Western company, you want to become more like global, right? Because in the past, most English speaking website and stuff, right, they actually don't give a fuck about any other languages, right? Oh, just do the US market. It's big enough, right? But right now, I think that more and more people understand that you can actually sell digital products, right, to all over the world. I think that's why we see this kind of like different choices in how to build a community. But I think both ways can work because there are more than one ways to the role of success,
Okay, so this show is a lot about builders, and we really focus on talking to builders. That's why I bring a lot of founders like you guys talk about what you're doing. I want to know, like, your meetings and people come up to you here in Singapore and Korea. Are you meeting a lot of builders asking for advice? Are you meeting holders asking you for stuff? Are investors coming to you? Like, who are you guys meeting the most?
Or maybe
of?
just photos,
and also people just taking selfies with you. But like, who do you think you're meeting the most?
Honestly, at this point, I think I only meet builders. Like my guess is even people here in the audience are all working on something. My default question is like, what are you working on? Even if they're like a fan or they hold Degods or they know about us or whatever it is, I've like asked, what are you working on? I don't think on this trip, I don't think I've met anyone that's like, just chilling. Like, honestly. So yeah, actually, I think that's a healthy sign. Earlier this year or even earlier this year, even last year, you meet a lot of people that are just like in Web3, trading or whatever it is. At this point, I mean, I've not seen as much of that.
Yeah, same. No, I think even like Frank says, like even the holders are representing something that they're not just like, oh, I'm here because I'm a fan. Yeah. Like they're here because like they're working on something else. They're working for a company in Web3. We met a guy last night who was like, I was in a banking job a year ago, bought a Degod, several of them, changed his life, ended up now he's working for one of the big Web3 companies, was hosting a huge event here in Singapore, like kind of insane, right? And he's like, a big UD holder. And it was kind of cool, right, to see him tell that story and obviously recognize him from being online, never met in person. But I think those are more the common thing, or it's like, hey, they're hosting something or they're coming up and it's like, oh, I'm the leader of this company or I'm running this product or I have this thing. So I think even if they're not builders and they're quote unquote selling you something and then saying, hey, I have this tool or this product you want to use, like they built it. It's not they're the salesperson for it. Like they're actually the person like deeply involved with it. And I think that's a pretty encouraging sort of meme for us.
I think NFT opens the door, right, to a lot of like traditional job people, right, to I would say open the mind. Okay, if you can sell JPEG, right, for millions of dollars, what if you build something actually useful and then you can sell for thousands of dollars, right? And you don't have to work for a big bank and stuff like that, right? I think that's actually kind of like happening, right? For example, when I was at the token event, right? I mean, I met some of our holders, right? And then he's like working at Stickfish, right? It's like one of the big staking validators, right? I think all this kind of stuff is almost like, okay, on one hand, there are two groups of people. On one hand, it's like you're already in crypto and stuff. And then, it's fun, NFT, right? And you make a bet in crypto, right? So you want to buy JPEGs and stuff and then tell people that you're rich without flexing your wallet, right? That's one crowd. But on the other end is also, I would say, traditional job people, right? They see that, okay, shit, this is like actually interesting and you can still make a living. Then why do I have to like stuck at my 9-to-5 job? I'm not saying that 9-to-5 job is bad, right? We still need that. We still need the bank, right? But somehow, I think a lot of people, they didn't know that they can make a choice like this. But Web3 makes them feel like, okay, shit, this is like a new industry. We're still so early that there are so many problems to be solved. And I think that's why a lot of people are with the ability, with some capital, right? Because, I mean, you need capital in order to buy NFT. That's why they can kind of like make use of that capital to build something more, I would say, meaningful and useful. And that's what I see right now as well. Yeah.
Hey, Karen, do you have any questions for these guys?
Well, a lot of people are talking about Ray's pillow. You're hugging this pillow.
Yeah, because I'm having an erection when I see all these guys. Yeah.
Well, this is the pillow talk. Everybody. This is the pillow talk.
Yeah, just kidding. Yeah. No, but. Yeah. I'm probably the most politically incorrect founders in Web3. Yeah.
And it's always just shocking. It's every time. It never gets old. Yeah.
The thing is, I think the thing is probably because I'm based in Asia, right? So I'm not that woke, right? And I don't really give a fuck to wokeness and stuff like that. I think that's why when I see my American friends, hey, Ray, you cannot say that. Yeah. That's sexist. That's racist. Yeah. I'm Asian. Right? That's what
censored.
I mean, jokes aside, I just feel like most of the time, I think Asia is still pretty free because we are still in the growing stage. We don't care a lot about a lot of things that seems less important. Right? I mean, people still. I think a lot of people say, okay, the American dream is happening in Asia, right? And I feel kind of like that. I'm not saying that wokeness is bad, right? But somehow, okay, diversity, maybe inclusiveness, right? I think those are good stuff, right? But why, right? I think it's always about the why, right? But anyway, we should not talk about that, right? This is about building.
I think it's really interesting. I think even beyond, honestly, just Asia, for me, it sounds dumb to say out loud, but it's real. Like NFTs are so global, like Web3 is so global that I think when we started Degods, I didn't realize, like, I didn't even know how many countries there were, to be honest. It was like, holy shit, like there are holders in all these major countries around the world. All these people kind of have these different interactions. And I think a global audience, and also, my parents are Asian and like a lot of that is in me. There's just like this oversensitivity in America broadly, but like once you step outside of that, like people care about way more important shit. Like, it's just like life is short. Like you're not fixating on every syllable that somebody says. And that's pretty refreshing and something that it's pretty invisible on crypto Twitter, pretty invisible within the ecosystem, but something I honestly deeply appreciate. It's just such a global culture, and it forces everything to be a lot more straightforward. People are a lot more honest and brutal, but it's different, honestly, than the purely American-centric media and just like American-centric communities.
It's almost like the mainstream media, right? They always want to create conflicts, right? So that all the parties, right, they have their own vested interests, right, in all these different kind of things, right? Of course, it's kind of like a crypto Twitter. It's kind of like mimicking that, right? That's why people flood projects most of the time, because it gets more engagement, because your holders will help to defend you, right? And then that gives them the boost, right, in the distribution, in the algorithm and stuff like that, right? So I think that's one thing. I think this reminds me of a Twitter space that I joined. And then some guys say that, okay, because we have a Kong, it's like a King Kong, right, in our captain's collection, right? And then Kong is like brown or black, right, dark skin, right? And then the guy's, hey, I think Meme Land is the most racist project out there, right? Why Kong is like dark skin? Why? Do you mean that like dark skin people is like just like monkey and stuff, right? I mean, it's like so crazy. Have you ever watched a movie King Kong, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like so woke to the sense that shit, you're so creative, right? Yeah. I mean, growing up from Asia, I actually never really thought about that, right? That's one thing. Another thing is also, I mean, yeah, another politically incorrect thing is like women in NFT, right? Women in Web3. I mean, of course, there are tons of dudes in Web3, right? This is the thing that I really don't want to go to NFT parties, right? It's like a sausage fest, right? I don't need to see more guys.
Is that why you
right?
left early?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just testing at the side. But anyway, it's like behind the JPEG, who knows your gender? Who knows you're Asian? I think before Frank revealed himself, who knows he's like so-called Indian background, right? I think it's like Web3 is like very, very fair, right? If you just work hard, communicate well, do some cool shit, right? Then people will buy in, right? Yeah. Of course, whether you continue to build, that's another question. But I think at the end of the day, it's quite a fair ground, right? I would say that it's unfair to old people, right? Because you have to stay up late, right? And then go join Twitter Spaces and shit, right? I think that's like very ageism, right? In Web3, but it's not really like sexist in Web3, right? And to be honest, a lot of the time, some projects, right, they focus a lot on the gender part, not the private part, but I mean for the gender, right? I was like, why, right? And to be honest, most of your holders, right, are still dudes, right? It's kind of like very weird in this sense. It's almost like, oh, the entry barrier is the same, right? Honestly, right? But somehow it's just more guys are nerds, right? That's why they start NFT projects, right? It's not like, oh, this is like a great opportunity, only guys can do. No, right? It's like all these nerds, right? They didn't do shit, right? They don't have girlfriends, right? That's why they sit in front of the computer to do stuff, right? And that's how we have more guys in NFT, right? But somehow they make it a thing, right? And I think that's why most of the panels that I listen to, right, when there's like a woman, I mean, focus a lot of the gender stuff. I feel like the focus is wrong. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that this should not be an issue for now because it's still so early, right? Yeah, it's almost like if you are a dog, right, you can actually launch an NFT and no one knows it, right? But right now, if we focus on that, then kind of like we lose sight on what we are building right now, right? Of course, we have like female team members, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure about the gender neutral stuff, but anyway, I think we are kind of like focused on what we are building, right? Instead of all the irrelevant stuff for now, right? But I don't know, this is like so incorrect, right? Probably get flooded. Yeah. People will clip this and then we got canceled, right? It's okay. Yeah. I'm an Asian. Yeah. I can always play my Asian card. Yeah.
Yeah. Gamer 420 said that, hey, Ray, I have a girlfriend.
Imagine girlfriend, right? Girlfriend. Yeah.
Imaginary girlfriend.
The GM show. Come on.
Yeah. And John said, hey, we all have boyfriends in Meme Land.
Yeah, for me, I was anonymous for the whole first year of Degods. And the whole thing, people like made pictures like what they think I look like, or there'd be moments where I had this Bitcoin mask and there's like hair. It would be like, oh, I'm some white, like private school kid, whatever, like all these kind of crazy stories around it. And it was super interesting because for me, you know, I think that inherently, even in crypto, like there's like jokes, like Jeet, right, as a joke or whatever, about Indian people or Asian people or whatever. And I felt super cool, like being able to just name myself Frank instead of Rohan, and just like be this character and be this person on the internet. And in a lot of ways, I always tell people I was like able to be more myself, just being this purely pseudonymous person on the internet. Because the only thing people are judging me on are like my thoughts, what we're putting out. And it was like there's no kind of baggage of like the person behind the screen. And that is easily one of the most beautiful parts of not just Web3, but the internet. It's truly like a real meritocracy and democracy in that way, where in the real world, there's just all kinds of different things with people that make it not a level playing field as much. So I honestly feel like that is the best part of Web3 in a lot of ways, especially personally for me. I don't know if I would have been able to have as much confidence, that I have now if it wasn't for the first year being anonymous and really just seeing like, damn, we can just do whatever. Like, we can really like just do what we think is interesting and cool. So,
but I think deep down you are a good person. That's why you didn't exploit that, right? I think a lot of people exploit that. Okay, behind the PFP, I can say whatever shit I like, right? I think that's why it's like a text, right? It's like a test, right? If you're a good guy, before JPEG, you are still a good guy, right? You don't say shit about other people, right? Of course, you make jokes all the time, right? But it doesn't mean that you have like a bad intention and stuff like that. But some people, they leverage the behind the PFP, I can say whatever shit, right? And all the people I met in real person, right? It's like, okay, you're just like that, right? And then you shit on me on internet all the time, right? And most of the time when we meet the people in person, right, they're a very, very nice guy. Because the really, really loser, right? They don't really go out to events, right?
And they don't fut in your face.
They don't fut in my face, yeah.
There's a famous quote. It's like, you give a man a mask and you see his real identity. Like the famous cliche quote, but it's super real. Like, people will be themselves when they're anonymous.
It was funny. So when I first met Rohan, I think you were 18 or 19, and they're in this backyard in Los Altos at a VC's backyard. So he was at UCLA as a student. I was an alumni of UCLA. We're sort of meeting at this venture event, and this kid walks up to me, and you're just like, oh, whatever. You're at this event. You got to talk to people eventually. That's kind of the game. But like just this energy, and you felt that connection. And then as went through the Web 2 thing, and then he started the Web 3 thing, and the thing that always amazed me is like I saw like the energy of meeting him, and just you can be around him, and he has this sort of electric personality. But you would read on Discord and you would watch people interact with Anonymous Frank. And I'm like, fuck, man, these people have no idea. Like, and it was just to me, like the way they would treat him. I'm like, if they really knew that this kid could literally be their son, because you would see these like grown ass adults just acting like complete crazy people. But then also others being like, this guy's like the Messiah. There was this different, but I'm like, it's just Frank. It's just Rohan. But I think that was like sort of this beautiful like 1 year. And I also played the anonymous game for a minute. And when my first couple of videos came out, and then I put them to my name, people were like, well, that's you. And they're like, what the hell? And like, so I think there is this sort of like magic to being able to like be somewhat anonymous for a minute to sort of like reset that, and then be able to let the project, your work speak for itself, that I'd never experienced any other way. Open source, like early software and open source had a minute of that, where you have people by their handle and you just look at the code they reviewed, and you may not have never met them because social media wasn't big in like the early 2000s with the open source thing. But to me, that was where I got the training of like what it felt like to get people really angry. The thing was, it was all in Web 2 forums. And so you would feel bad because like the Apache committer would say that your code sucks, but you wouldn't actually, that wouldn't go viral, and you're like, 13-year-old daughter wouldn't read it on Twitter and be like, Dad, what's this? Like, but yeah, I think there is sort of like a coolness to letting anyone in build. And it is unfortunate that there is these sort of stereotypes at times of like, it's unfair here and there. It's really more fair and more open than any other.
Yeah. And I think that, I always feel like the world is great. Human make it suck, right? I think Web3 is kind of like that, right? I mean, I've been into NFT rabbit hole for like 2 years, right? I think the first year, it's actually pretty good, right? People are very friendly, right? And then they talk about, okay, oh, you're launching this project. Oh, I want to support, right? I mean, these days, oh, you launched that project, right? You suck, right? Yeah. You're like a rugged, right? And stuff like that. Right? I mean, it's like, this is why we can't have nice things, right? It's kind of like that kind of feeling when you start to work more, right? That's why you need to meet builders in real person, right? So on one hand, you pump the hopium into each other, right? On the other hand, it's also more like we share the pain, right? We can bitch about the community, right? In private, right? I mean, Degods is a great community, right? That's I have to say it in public, right? Yeah, and not to imply that Frank's shit on it, but I think the whole thing is I think when community is like the best thing and also the worst thing, right? Social media is the same, right? Without social media, it would be hard for Web3 to grow. But because of social media, a lot of people do it for the cloud, for fame, right? They say shit that they don't even mean, right? But because they can get more followers, right? That's why they do it. I think this is like so sad, right? Because even if you get more followers, maybe you get like $500 from Twitter, right? X, right? Not Twitter. So what? And then you kind of like wasted your reputation on that, right? I think you burn all the bridges, right? I think they focus too much on the short term. I don't know, but because of the age or because of the character, but somehow I think this is not the right way to see things. I think in the long run, when we zoom out, I think this space is great. There are tons of good people, right? For us, we just have to focus on that. That's why right now, I think Frank also messaged me one time. It's like, I think I shit on some stuff, and they say, "Hey Ray, you should not say that," right? I was like, shit, this is like a 20-something guy, right? And then remind me not to shit on other people. Then I was like, shit, this guy is like really, really mature, right? I think it's almost like we need certain kind of like contracts as in a Web3 founder, right? If you are like more mature, older, right, then you have to be young at heart, right? Meanwhile, when you are young, you actually have to be more mature so that you can take all the shit from people. So I think this is like how I see from Degods, right? They are like the very interesting combo, right? In Web3, right? I'm not saying that you're old, right?
I am old. But
yeah, but the thing is, on one hand, you have the energy, right? You also have the I would say responsibility, right? I think that part is something that I see why Degods is like one of the top projects in the space. Yeah.
Well, what a great conversation from the question. What's up with the pillow? Right?
Yeah. We have tons of screenshots comparing.
But right now, even if I remove it, right, it feels like my erection is gone.
Yeah.
It's a meme. It's a meme now. Yeah. So are you guys more hopeful, like after 2 weeks of traveling and less online? Does it give you more?
No, the market's still nuking. It's tough. Yeah, it's rough. I don't know about hopeful, but I think it's just fixating on what Ray said. Is really, it means a lot to me because, you know, for me, I just think I remember when like we first started Degods, it felt like we're going to get so many talented people to join Web3. There's going to be like interesting people that come in and make creative things. And that's what's going to continue to propel the space. You know, everyone spends all day talking about marketplaces and like to me, I've always had this very creator centric, not like in a lovey-dovey, like, you know, fluffy way, but really like what makes people excited about NFTs. It's like actually just the literal projects. You know, it's like I talk to these ordinal guys all week. I'm like, honestly, it's not about the marketplace or Bitcoin or whatever. Like, when's the next exciting project coming out? And that's what's going to drive people to come over there. It doesn't matter the blockchain, whatever. But now it just feels like it's such a deeply low incentive market and ecosystem for high talent people. And high talent people are going to be the people that propel us to the next level beyond even the people that have already made stuff. And that's the part that hurts me the most because it's hard to like meet people that are doing interesting things and tell them earnestly that they should do anything in this space. Like you meet someone you actually like and care about, you're like, dude, don't do shit. Don't fucking launch in Web3, which fucking sucks when you think about it. So yeah, man, you hit the nail on the head.
Any other questions from the?
Cool. No, people said that are we going to auction this pillow? But
ask Nelson for help on that.
I mean, this is why we can't have nice things, right? We have like the top founders in the space, and then you ask me about the pillow, right?
That's a good question.
This is like the issue in Web3. That's also the reason why we are launching Memeland, right? Because I know that from firsthand experience, like people care about memes more than like meaningful stuff, right? So somehow, I think the biggest issue for Memeland right now is we are not meme enough, right? We are not memeful enough, right? We are too serious, right? That's why this is something that we have to do better, right? But I think at the end of the day, I totally agree with what Frank and also Kevin said, right? I think on one hand, we want more talented people to join because this is so fun, right? We want to see people succeed, right? Because to be honest, we understand that, okay, even if you win, it doesn't mean that we will lose, right? Because the space is so new, so early, right? And the funny thing is, I think most people, they focus on the wrong stuff, right? For example, I did a panel with Gabriel, right, in Seoul. Right, yeah. And then he asked me something like, okay, Ray, do you think Degods and Suzuki is your competition, right? It's Memeland's competition. I said, no. And then I said, the real enemy is the company, is the people who are not in Web3. And then some people just focus on the term enemy. And they say that, hey, Ray, you think about things about enemy, right? This is so wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then he likes to write a long thread. And I was like, shit, I literally say quote unquote so-called enemy, right? I think it's like, I don't know. Let's focus on the big picture and then build it like step by step instead of like focus on the small stuff and then keep challenging each other, right? Because that's not how company is built, right? I mean, I think Kevin and I are kind of like, oh, we are into startups world in like 10 years, 15, not 15, like 10 to 20 years, right? I think that's something that we feel like, okay, on one hand, you have to have the long-term vision, right? But you also have to execute step by step. And by default, you will fail, right? At this kind of a launch, right? That's why we have MVP, a minimal viable product, right? That's why we kind of like have iteration and stuff like that, right? That's why I really love our friends' Peanut quote, right? You try some shit and then try some new shit and stuff like that, right? I think this is actually the builder's mindset, right? Because if we launch it and then we know that this can work, right? Then probably we are too safe, right? I think Reid Hoffman, right? He literally say that, right? If you are not embarrassed by your first version of the product, right, then you are launching too late, right? I think, but the thing is, in the past, we only have to pitch this to investors, right? To venture capitalists, right? But right now, we actually have to teach our community to understand that, right? But somehow, that's where the gap is, right? Because on one hand, they have like unrealistic expectation. On the other hand, they focus too much, they put too much emphasis on the failure, right? But to be honest, right, I think at the end of the day, building a company, building a product is not a numbers game. It's not at school, right? At school, if you fail one subject, you're fucked, right? Because you can't graduate. But in real life, you can fail like 99 times, but you make it big one time, then you're coochie, right? That's what a lot of people are in the space, right? So I think people are still very into the traditional school mindset. I think school fucks up people's mind a lot. I think school is great to meet friends and learn some knowledge, right? But they also fucks up people's mind a lot. Just on one hand, it's like competition, right? It's always competition. On the other hand, is okay, you have to win all the time, right? No. Right? You actually just have to win once, right? I mean, all the sports and stuff, even like NBA, right? You don't have to win like all the winning, right? You just have to win more than you lose, right? Then you just get in the playoff, then you're coochie, right? Of course, at the end, you still have to win, but building startups is not NBA, right? It's not F1, right? There can be multiple winners, right? I think those are the things that most holders, they don't know. That's why they always are into that zero-sum game. Yeah. So I think this is something that that's kind of, I wouldn't say, I think it's impossible to change that. But I think as a builder, we have to understand that so that we don't get affected too much by the community. So that, okay, we become very competitive to each other. I think that's, at least that's how I think about it. Yeah.
What about you guys? Like the you know, whenever something you say, everybody jumps on.
Yeah, kind of thing. My line on this every time is like, I'm shocked at how many NFT experts there are. It's like, I mean, I remember when the Degods started, like, even on Solana, like we were making our own like rarity spreadsheets. Barely like people could find how to buy stuff, and that's almost now 2 years ago. And I just think by definition, I was thinking about this today morning. Like by definition, you know, like Bored Apes came out like April 2021. We were like, I think October 2021. And I'm like, dude, it's, you know, like people expect everyone to have everything answered, but by definition, like all these PFP projects, or just broadly these community-based projects, like we're all by definition on the cutting edge. Whether people want to call what people are doing right now innovation or not, that's fine. But by definition, it's not like there's a playbook. Like there's actually not, right? There's actually not like the right answer on how to do it. And so I find like that is just the ironic thing that people feel like there's like a right answer to doing things when by definition this industry is like getting formed as we speak. And it's not like we have these massive breakaway successes. I mean, the biggest company in our space is Yuga. It's like they have their positives, they have their negatives, but that's like, you know, that we are very, very early. We don't have like these huge examples to look at and, oh, just go do it like that. So I think I wish people could just understand that part of it at the very least. It's like, not saying don't criticize, but like, damn, bro, it's like, how are you the expert on this? Like, I don't, how is that? I don't know when I missed the memo there. But yeah.
I think it's totally correct, right? I feel like people emphasize too much on tradition, right? In Web3. I was like, fuck, Bitcoin was not here, right? 10 years ago. What tradition, right? Oh, this is not what Yuga Labs does the collection, right? Oh, you should have trades, right? You should have rarity. Who say that, right? I think, fuck, right? All the ERC 1155, right? No rarity. it's still NFT, right? People still buy, right? If you can make people buy, right? So I feel like, I think it's very weird in this space. Is on one hand, we talk about innovation all the time. We want new stuff, right? But every time we launch new stuff, we get flooded, right? Oh, I don't think this is what porn should be done, right? I think you should not just give out Tesla. Why? Why Tesla? Why not Lambo, right? It's like so random. The fun is so random, right? But at the same time, I think all of this so-called quote-unquote expert, right? It's like, what have you done before, right? But we can't literally say that because they can say that, hey, I don't have to be a good cook, right, to comment that your dish is bad, right? I think it's stuff like
I've
this.
been running businesses for 10 years.
Yes,
like,
something
of
like
course,
that.
you know, how did you not think about this? Like,
That's very funny, right? I want to share a small story, right? I think when I was at the Story Protocol dinner, right, I met Poopy, right, Jordan, right, and then he's a very nice guy in person. Yeah, I'm not saying that honor his bad, right, but he's a very very nice guy in person, right? And then I was like, I mean, because he's like a famous quote, like for it and get the fuck off. Yeah. And then a lot of people think that, okay, I actually hate doodles and stuff, right? And then Frank, this is actually a message that Frank told me that, okay, maybe you should not say that, you make fun of doodles and stuff, right? But and then Poopy told me that he actually doesn't mind, right? Because he thinks that, hey, my Twitter handle is Poopy. Yeah. Of course, I can take jokes, right? I think stuff like that. So I think people emphasize too much on the hate, emphasize too much on the, bad stuff, right? They forget how to have fun, right? I remember, Frank, you have a thread saying that, okay, NFT, the main utility is having fun, right? I think we kind of like lack that, right? And honestly, the best thing in Web3 is about the money part. The worst thing is also the money part. If we actually have to grow Web3, we literally have to tell people that in Web3, they're more than money, right? I'm not talking about friendship that you make along the way, but more about other stuff that maybe, it's good to support the creators that you like. You just buy it and hold it and love it, right? And probably, I feel like if we only want Web3 to be expand, we need more customers, right? We don't need more holders, right? Because for customers, they're actually happy that they pay money and then they own it. That's it, right? I mean, maybe they will sell it like 5 years later, right? But not like five hours and then flip for like 0.01 ETH profit, right? So I think these are the stuff that what gets industry started. It's not something that can get the industry to move forward to the next stage. I kind of feel Web3 is like now in this stage. And that's why I think like this time, this is like a good reset in a way so that people can kind of like, okay, go back to the down to earth instead of going to the moon. Yeah. Yep.
Great. Do we have any questions from the audience? When meme.
So usually so to wrap this up, what we usually do is the founder to founder thing. So this is, you guys have a lot of private conversations. Maybe you guys what kind of question would you like to ask Ray? And Ray, what kind of question would you like to ask the Degods guys?
All the questions that I want to ask friends should not be made public. Yeah. But I think I just feel like I mean you guys are into the space longer, right? Somehow I want to understand. I mean, to be totally blunt, right? You're like the projects that go through like the most ups and downs and still not yet dead, right? How do you do that? Yeah. Right? I'm trying to learn from that so that the next time that we got FUD, I can remind what you say to me right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for people that are active in NFTs and Web3 broadly, it's counterintuitive. I think people care more about being embarrassed or feeling dumb than they do about strictly the amount of money that they lost on paper, and I think what that looks like is, hey, I'm telling all my friends I fucking love Degods. Degods are fucking sick. Degods are going to the moon. You're replying to people defending the project on Twitter. And, for a long time, it's like if that goes really well, you feel like you're not just, holding a cool NFT. You also feel like you're smart. You feel, confident. And I think when you take that away and when the market obviously reacts, like recently we just had a poor launch, I would categorize it as the thing that honestly hurts me from day one, because I actually just care. I just care about the guys in the community. What sucks is like not even necessarily the money. It's just the people that care the most feel dumb. They feel like they made the wrong decision. They question their own thought process around stuff. And I feel all of our comebacks, honestly, from being in these dark spots is just having a lot of empathy and trying to understand why do our holders and why do the community feel the way that they do right now? Because in a lot of ways, it's a very irrational space. And I think a lot of teams try to like take that irrationality and like bundle it up and put it into a box and like, no, this is what you're supposed to think. But then JPEGs wouldn't cost thousands of dollars. You know, it's like you can get a MacBook for $1,500 and that's going to be more utility than any fucking NFT could possibly give you. And so I think embracing the emotionality and the where are the holders, like where are they at? What are they thinking? And even broadly within crypto Twitter, so that you can come up with ideas that meet them where they're at. So when we're at our low, and we're going to do some exciting stuff coming up that are not like the thing we had planned. Honestly, we're scrapping a lot of that. Now it's like meeting the community where they're at today, so that not only do they feel heard, but also surprising them and delighting them in a way that's exciting. I feel like that's what always all the comebacks come from, is just, hey, like we did this thing and then they don't like it for these reasons. Instead of trying to respond immediately, just let people know that they're heard immediately. So the real diehard guys don't feel stupid. They're like, okay, I've seen this pony show before. Like I know Frank's fucking listening and I know they're going to come up with something that's going to, you know, address every concern in a creative way, wrap it up in a bow, and then, you know, make this thing fun and exciting again. And so that's where I start. I'm always like making sure people feel heard. And then we go to the lab and now it's like we're working on something that I'm genuinely actually fucking excited about and feel like it addresses a lot of the things that went wrong with the last launch. And then when we put that out, it's like now I'm excited because I think it's going to meet people where they're at. That's always been the cycle for those ups and downs that you were describing. We can talk about more. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my perspective is it's been evolved. I mean, Frank's has a very different approach to this. Like historically, I'm like very linear thinker. I'm like, what do we need to go? I literally would ask him in the morning, like, what do I need to build? And he's like, dude, you're thinking about it wrong. And I was like, no, how can I be wrong? Like, I just need to go tell them what to build and then push them and make them build faster. And then we make it good and then we ship it. And like my model is like, well, what's the ticket I load into Jira or to Linear or whatever we're using to track bugs? And what I've learned through this process and like getting to know Rohan more and like understanding like how he thinks, but also like why in this market, a lot of the things that I've learned for 20 years building companies is just wrong in this market, is that you have to be willing to adjust because the market's so nascent and so early. You have to be willing to be like, well, we had a really strong idea. We actually spent months building something, and be super conscious and fine throwing that away. And a lot of times what has surprised me is he's like, it's just not ready now. And so we've come back to things that we've built maybe a year ago that then we're like, oh, wait, now that thing will work. We'll grab this thing out of like GitHub, bring it up, finish the UI and ship it. And I think so now I'm less worried when he's like, no, we're not doing these 12 things that we had planned. We're going to do this new thing that wasn't on the list. And I'm like, okay, cool. We go do that. And then we see what we have and say, hey, can we reuse some of this? If not, we build something new. But super comfortable that a year from now, the things that we thought we needed will be relevant. It just wasn't the timing and the sequence to his point, meet the market where it's at. And I think in this nascent market where it's a very visceral sort of reaction and a very tight feedback loop, you have to be willing to adjust and just, you know, passionately listen to that feedback and be willing to be wrong, like at a level that for me still is quite uncomfortable, right? Where I'm like, I know what we're building is correct for this reason, but he's like, that's not the most important reason for these 5 things. And you're like, okay. And like, that still feels a little bit painful to like swallow that code and park it. And honestly, even in the team, like we've had, you know, members of the team join and leave over time where that's just not the way that they can't do it. And they're incredible engineers that have been, you know, multi-decades of engineering, but they're like, I just can't work on something for 10 weeks and then not ship it. And literally like, we're just shelving that. And I think that has also changed the way we hire. Now we bring people in more frequently on contracts, like, hey, let's get to know you, you get to know us. And I'm super transparent and say, yeah, it's weird. Our office is like a house in Santa Monica. And yeah, we like meet and sleep and live in this house. And like, it's different, but like, that's how we've connected and we're able to work really deeply. And it's not a traditional sort of space, and we're approaching it in a non-traditional way.
And the thing I'll add to that, because just zooming out, where like I imagine you have this as well, Ray, where you're like, it's late at night and you're like, dude, fuck, is this thing like, is this Web3 thing like gonna ever be big, you know, and like be something that you can grow the team and like create something that's actually gonna have value over time. And I feel the approach that we're taking now, the only addendum I put to what Kevin said, I agree on everything. It's just it's not market, it's meet the community. And I think it's like, there are these like internet tribes that are forming. And to me, it just seems very clear. It's not even about disrupting gaming or disrupting anime or disrupting these other things. There are these like internet tribes forming, and there will be an immense amount of value creation and a lot of different things that can turn into digital native brands, whatever the term you want to use for it. You know, it's like today I like this brand called Aim Leon Dore. It's like some fucking streetwear luxury brand, whatever. I'm like, I don't actually know where they fucking started. I don't know like where they began or like what the origin is. There's this thing that exists. How do I find out about them? Through the internet. And I think that people are just going to buy this, and the digital goods, digital collectibles industry broadly will take up so many different shapes and forms. And me and Kevin always talk about is how do we just make the best ones for, you know, following where the people want it to go without like without tyranny of the majority and like, you know, losing your own sense of a North Star. But I'm just like very curious to see like what do these people actually fucking want and how can we make something that excites them? And doing that on loop for the last 2 years, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but overall, I mean, like, man, we were supposed to be dead like a long time ago. To your point, so yeah.
I see the great chemistry here. Right? It's almost like every Frank is a Kevin, right? I think it's that's the reason why I think Degods is Degods, right? I think a lot of the NFT team. I mean, I buy a lot of NFTs, right? So I kind of see that as if the team only have like a very young and energetic founders, right? They get burned out quite quickly, right? Because honestly, you can't just on one hand go on Twitter all day, right? Join the Twitter Spaces, right? But at the back you can still building, right? That's why you need to have someone who doesn't mind staying at the back and keep pushing the team forward, right? I don't know what is a coincidence or phase, right? We actually also have a Kevin, right? He's our head of product as well. Maybe Kevin is better at product, yeah. So I think he's actually the guy who like behind the scene and then, oh, this is cool, right? We should build it, and then he just make it happen, right? And then just like what you said, 10 weeks later, I don't think we want to launch that, right? And then his job is how can he tell the engineers, right? How can he tell the designer that, okay, right now we're shelving this, but this is for the greater good, right? I think that part is actually the hard part, right? Because I mean, shitting with community, I think that part is kind of fun, right? Because I think most of the time you can just chit chat with them and talk about TV shows, right? And then they're already kind of happy, right? And of course, some of them we will never be happy, right? But that's another question, right? But at the end of the day, you need a division of labor, right? Because every front-facing founders, right? You actually need a backwork team, right, at the back, right, to support you. Because if you are only keep talking about your vision, right, you will never gotta build anything, right? So I think that part is actually why I'm bullish, right, on Degod, right? Yeah, it's because of this kind of like dynamics, right? And I think this is actually for any new projects out there, right? If they actually want to launch and they are like a young founder, right? They actually need a guy who's willing to stay behind the scene, right? And I think that part is actually very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
How about you guys? You guys have any question for Ray?
Yeah, I think it's along the similar thing I was referring to at the end. When you think about how does this, like, forget about Web3 or even NFTs, like, what's your, when you think about 5 years from now, people's interfacing with just like, whether it's digital goods, digital collectibles, NFTs, investments, whatever it is, like what part of that excites you? Like we're, you know, on the dark days when you're talking to the team, like what part of that is like, no guys, this thing's gonna be fucking big. We got to keep going. Like where is that for you?
I actually don't know about that, right? I mean, for me, at Mimland, we always talk about social fire, right? Because we've been in social media for like 15 years, right? I mean, from the first hand, I know that there are a lot of issues in the current social media space. The platform got too much power, right? There are tons of creators. There are new creators every day, but most of them, they actually don't make any money, right? But they are doing it for free, right? That's why I feel like Web3 makes a lot of sense, right? If people believe that DeFi can disrupt like TradFi, right? It's because the bank, right? They own so much power so that they become like complacent, right? So that their service sucks, right? And that's why DeFi has a selling point. I think it's the same case for social, right? That's why I focus more on social, right? But I have something called a reverse test, right? When I see about some new ideas and stuff, right? Instead of thinking that, oh, this doesn't work, right? Oh, I saw that idea before. Probably that didn't end well, right? So yours doesn't work, right? But for me, right, more like from a builder, from a so-called investor mindset, it's more like, okay, what if it happens, right? What if it works, right? Do I want to go back? Right? Look at like Uber, look at Airbnb, right? Sharing your house with strangers, like the weirdest ideas ever, right? Sharing your car with random people, right? It's like it's definitely a kind of bad idea, right? So, but if it works, right? Do you want to go back? If you click a button and then you get a cab, right? Do you want to go back to where, oh, you have to go down to the street and then wait for the taxi, right? You don't, right? Then maybe Uber is or Lyft, right? Is not the company that can make it work, right? But that category is here to stay, right? And if you are like an investor, right? Maybe you invest in that category, right? That's why I invest in so much. I wouldn't say shit, right? But so many projects, right? In Web3, crossover entertainment and stuff like that. Because I see from the first hand that the new idols are not made by the agency, right? The new idols are made by the people, right? I mean, you are a YouTuber, you actually get more fans, right? Than any Hollywood stars. Right? Look at Mr. Beast, right? I think stuff like that, you actually see that. And if that's the way how new idols are born, right? Then is there any way for those idols to give back to the early supporters, right? So in that sense, I think this category is here to stay. Social-fi is here to stay. Maybe not Friendhead, right? Maybe not Memeland, right? But somehow the category is there, right? Then if you're an investor, you just invest more, right? Or participate in that category. Then you get to know more. And then you can filter out the good and bad like products within that category. And that's how on one hand to make relationship, right? On the other hand, it's also to learn more about that category. And to be honest, you just like Sherlock Holmes, right? You don't have to know the earth like surrounding the sun and stuff like that. You just have to know what you need to know, right? I think that's good enough. I mean, we all die anyway, right? So if you can make like a decent life, a decent living, right, with families and kids, then and somehow you're happy with what you're doing, right? You don't even have to change your world. Just change your world, right, around you, right? Make your family better, make your friends better, right? Make your holders better, right? Then that's it. Right, so this is how I think about it. But that's also the reason why I'm down bad. Yeah. So
Fascinating.
Yeah, that's something like that. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Have you guys been entertained today?
Whoa.
Round of applause, Frank and Kevin, Ray Chen, our first live GM show.
Woo, 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 woo.
Anything else to add there to finish it off, Karen?
No, that's it. Thanks for everybody coming, and it's good to see you guys in real life for the first time in Singapore. So thank you guys.
Great. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, play it out.